Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to do a video about Heuerweißes, classic Heuerweißes that were made before the war. What you can see are the Weisses, almost all models that were made. You have on the left side the Heuer front and on the right side the Heuer Primus models. And let's start with the patents that were registered for these Weisses. So the first patent is by Josef Heuer in 1925, which is the original patent for drop forged Weisses. And as you can see, the idea was to have those two parts of the Weiss, the dynamic jaw and the static jaw, drop forged, and use an I-beam design to make sure they are aligned properly and there's no play in between them. So idea is that the dynamic jaw sides act as keys, and you can imagine those I-beam as groove, because it's a little bit, if you extend those line you have a V, and the key sides they slide into this, and you can use the bolt here to tighten this up, so to remove any play. That was the initial patent, and this was picked up by Brockhaus and Sons. So that's why the company today that still exists is called Brockhaus Heuer, because Brockhaus and Sons made the Heuerweiss and they kept the name. And around 12 years later they made a little improvement, because the problem with the I-beam design is it sounds good in theory, but when you use the Weiss and there's some wear in it, problem is the lower part here is bearing all the weight of the dynamic jaw, of the size, and this gets worn down, and the problem is after a while you can't really tighten this up enough anymore to remove all the play. And the improvement is to change the angle, because the bigger the angle is, the less way you need to get the key to interact with the groove again. So they changed that, and I think today they still use this design with a wider angle for the I-beam. So the old Weisses, you can see here, they all use the old design, so usually they're kind of worn out and they all suffer from play, and I will talk about this later, what you can do about this. So there's also a swivel version, that's an extra patent, and the thing with the swivel version is the bolt is forged, there's a bolt in the middle of the static jaw, and there is a swivel base with a nut which can be tightened with a lever, and the thing is the bolt is forged in, so you can't turn a non-swivel version into a swivel version, just the other way around. When you cut off the bolt, then kinda remove the swivel feature, but you can't get it back. So this is the patent for the swivel base, and they talk about, there's an extension about how to make the lever stick and not move by itself. And around 1937 Mr. Heuer also patented the front version. That's the first idea they had. Use keys, round keys from the side, or use one key from the bottom, which pushes against a round bar to remove any play. They never made that version, but the overall design is like they made it later. There are just more and more extensions for that patent before they figured out how to do it. So now we have more wedge-shaped keys or wider keys, but that was also never produced. That went on. Then I tried diagonal or slightly from the bottom design. Never made that one. And finally, the last version. That's the version they actually produced, more or less. So what you have is a key coming from the bottom into a groove on the round bar, and the key is quite simple to make compared to round keys, so it's just a simple key. And they also patented the wipers, dirt wipers, left and right. They never made it this way. They incorporated the wipers inside the static jaw. They are hidden inside using felt rings. And they also have a stop plate at the end, which limits the travel of the dynamic jaw. They never made it this way. They just used a stop pin to save costs, I guess. And there's some marketing material here. You can see Brockhaus and Sons with the two models, Primus in front. And it talks about the benefits of the vices, like you can remove the play, and it's only half the weight of a cast vise. And with the more features I'm going to talk about later. And also the different sizes they made. Start with the Primus model. So you have model 4, 5, 6 and 7 with size 100 millimeters, 125, 150 and 180. So you also see the size in inch and weight there. And these are the models. Model 3, 4, 5 and finally the very big number 6. So there are all the Heuer Primus DRP models, which stands for Deutsches Reichspatent, which means German Reich or German Empire Patent. And the front model, I don't have all of them. I don't have a swivel version, but they made a model 2, 3, 4 and 5. So 6 inch, 5 inch, 4 inch and 3 1/4. I only have 3. I have the very small one and the 5 inch and the 6 inch. After the war they changed the design. So if you're sometimes you see a different vise being sold, which kind of looks like the pre-war Primus but isn't, and you can clearly see the difference because the feet or ears are not forged in like with these models. You can see it's completely forged from one piece. The ears are in one piece. With that, it's not welded on, that is just one solid piece. And after the war, around in the 50s, they changed that. You can see the feet ears are welded on. Also, they apparently used the better I-beam design. And you can also, if you see one, it says Heuer Primus on it and not Heuer DRP. And the nut is a little bit recessed inside the dynamic jaw. And they did that because with the ears welded on, they also welded on, so the dynamic jaw is made from two pieces, and if you see one, you can see a weld seam over the nut. So this is made in 2 pieces and not one. So there's a weld seam if you look closely when you see one. They did it because, now imagine if you don't weld on this part and you don't weld on the feet, and you just weld on something with feet on the dynamic jaw, you suddenly have a front opening model, and that's the model they keep producing and refining, and it's the one they still sell today. But I don't have one, but if you see a model with a tube for the lead screw, then it's quite old, because later they changed that to a U-shaped cover and not a tube anymore. So I say if you see one with a tube, even a front model, it's a nice model to have and you can't really go wrong. But if you want a pre-warm model, then of course you need to look out for Primus DRP and the front models with the round bar. Alright, that's about the pens. And I say we take apart a Primus, let's say the number 5 there, so I can show you how to take it apart, and later on we talk about what are the issues you need to look out for, or what you can repair when it's a little bit damaged.